Hello and welcome to another episode of Unmasking Leaders, where Katie and I interview leaders asking questions that give us insights we don't often get. Today, we're delighted to be joined by Tim Payne. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Hi. Yeah, good. Thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, we're good. Thanks. We're good. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Obviously, I feel like the background we have to talk about is that you have had quite an extensive rugby career, playing for Wasps, 22 caps for England. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
And obviously representing the Lions, winning multiple Premiership titles and Heineken Cups with Wasps to compete at the highest level internationally. Your career is no doubt packed with achievements and probably memorable moments, some that you can share and some that you probably can't, granted.
Yeah.
But we're really excited to dive into your journey. So I think a really important thing we want to talk about today is probably focusing on team culture. So whether you want to talk about Wasps or with England or with the Lions, how important was team culture in driving success, would you say?
Oh, massively. I mean, it's difficult to describe, but like, in order to succeed, you have to have a team culture where everyone's working together to achieve the same goal. Whether you're on the bench, not involved in the squad, you've got to be all driving together. It's a huge thing, and one thing that I've really taken out towards everything in life. Even with my partner, my wife. Sorry, you know, we work together, talk together, and work together to achieve things.
Yeah, and it's probably also how you have to adapt how you probably communicate with different people in the team. I'm guessing like quite a few different personalities in these teams.
Oh yeah, hugely. I know you asked about like the reputation, success, and team environment for WAS. We were, especially at that time in 2003, we used to describe ourselves as a team as misfits. Um, but Warren Gatland brought us all together. There were guys that were established there, and there were guys that had struggled at other clubs, myself included. Um, and like we said, we were like the misfits. We were the wrong ones at other clubs, but he brought us together and was like, "Well, I think they're going to work for us." And Warren was almost a bit like a sort of father figure for me, if I'm honest, because I was only very young at the time. I was 22, and you know, I was going to go into the army. That was my career path, and then I got this lifeline at WAS. So I was like, well, I'll give it one more shot. If I don't make it out, I'll go into the army. And he brought us together, and it worked out brilliantly. And he was very much like, we don't care what you've done. Not that we've done anything bad. Um, he was just like, he brought us together, and building that team around us was phenomenal.
I think from what you've said, it's quite obviously quite key that who's kind of leading the team, how important he is in probably bringing people together too, isn't it? It's not, you know,
Yeah, he was fantastic like that, and he still is to this day. Like we had, Gats was a great guy. In the, I actually used to live around the corner from him, and even though I was only 22, we'd win a game, and he'd be like, "What are you up to, mate?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm just at home." He's like, "Fancy a beer at the Wheat Chief round the corner?" I'd be like, "Yeah, cool. All right then, why not?" So, obviously he's a lot older than me, but he was not. No, I'm not saying it's all to do with beer and things like that, but he was very good at managing um, younger people and understanding them. And I still contact him to this day to go, how's things going, sort of thing. And he was very good at that.
So looking at Wasps, specifically, what do you think were the key values or principles that defined the team culture?
Um, there was no egos. We had a lot of people who were big, like you had Lawrence Delalio, obviously, who was captain of England. You had, you know, even Rafi Ibanez, who was captain of France. But there was literally like no egos at all. we played against some big teams and some big cup finals. And, you used to hear about stories about other teams where I don't really want to put rugby in a bad way, but like, there was like that old school mentality of um, the senior boys sit at the back of the bus. And in order to get to the back of the bus, and I know this at other clubs, maybe not so much now, but it used to be like, if you want to get to the back of the bus, you've got to fight one of the older players. And at Wasps, I never saw that. I never saw it at all. And people talk about bullying, and I go, no. At Wasps, we were so lucky in that as a young lad coming into the squad, I went back and played cards with the boys at the back of the bus on the way to a game. After a game, you might be having a beer or something like that at the back of the bus. And it was just like, yeah, come sit down. There was nothing at all. Like, and it was just like, yeah, come back. And, everyone was welcome.
No hierarchy.
No hierarchy at all. Everyone knew who the senior players were. And don't get me wrong, I became a senior player, but there was no, and Warren Gatland insisted on that. And he was very much like, nah, we're all in it together. We play together, we work together. You don't have a hierarchy, but you knew obviously there was a hierarchy, but don't scream it out loud.
So rugby is quite known for its like quite intense physical demands and also mental demands as well. How did you develop the mental resilience needed to perform like at the highest level? And then how do you maintain that resilience in your life now, would you say?
It was very much like physically very hard. It's very hard. And I don't like, I used to say to my, and don't get me wrong, I was talking about it to someone the other day. I said, because there's this stuff with the concussion protocols at the moment. And I said, well, listen, I knew what I was getting into. I worked hard, I played hard. I go, and training's very, very difficult, especially as a rugby player because of the physical demands. But I always say to people, I said, well, I got so well looked after at Wasps. Mentally, we very much had an attitude, just get on with it. And, no matter what the challenge is, you've just got to deal with it. And there's no problem, there's no harm in sharing with people. And that's what I've found both on and off the field. We were very much, and still to this day, I'm still in contact with my friends that I played with. I'd say every day I'd speak to someone that I played with, and if I've got a problem, I know who I would talk to, and I've learned that. And as during that time, if you had a problem, I'm not talking off the field, maybe more on the field, you need to ask the questions. And I always say to people, ask a stupid question. I think I said this to Izzy actually when I was on the phone a couple of weeks ago. Ask a stupid question. And you might look like an idiot for 2 seconds, but you're going to get it right. If you don't ask the question, you're going to get it wrong. And then if you get it wrong, you're going to make me look bad and things like this. And I'm very much like, just ask. There's no harm in asking. And building up that mental resilience, I think, comes from the people around you as well.
It sounds as if you all felt really supported as a team. And I think that shows probably, and then how you played and how you then could confide in one another. It was like that, you're going to achieve, aren't you? And you're not afraid of failing almost because of everything around you, the support network.
Yeah, 100%. And we also pushed each other. Like, standards were very high. Standards were very high. And if you didn't meet those standards, you'd know about it. You would know about it. And like, there were most times like we'd be doing fitness tests and Gats would be stood on the sideline going, oh, Penny's catching you, the young lad's catching you. And I'd be like, oh, God. So you push yourself even harder. But it wasn't a bad thing. Like, I say that in the wrong way. It wasn't, he was doing it to push you. And Ian McGeechan, they were always like, oh, we've signed a new young lad and he's coming into your position.
He's coming
And,
for
I,
you.
and I'd be like, well, I kicked him out of the team. He was an All Black. So I'm going to back myself. So it's constantly going, you've just got to back, you have to back yourself. And it's not in a bad way, not in an arrogant way. I mean, don't get me wrong. We had times where everyone used to call us, oh, they're arrogant, they're London team. And we were like, well, we're not, but we're just backing ourselves. So you've got to have a slight bit of arrogance, not being arrogant, but you've got to go, well, yeah, we are going to push it. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
So in terms of probably the leadership, say at Wasps, were there some specific kind of qualities that you see in the leaders, whether it's the players or the coaches or?
I mean, Lawrence Delalio was absolutely fantastic. Like, I can't speak highly enough of him. I can't really put he was just brilliant, and when the chips were down, he would talk. I remember playing in 2005 Cup final. I was actually spoken about it with Chris. Like, I just said, I'll never forget the speech he made. And sometimes you just get unbelievable leaders, but he led from the front. He led from the front, and there were times when he wasn't playing so well, but when the big occasions came, he really stepped up to the plate. And I remember 2005 Cup final, playing it, in front of 8,000 people. We're in the change room before the kickoff, and I remember running out and being like, "We're going to win this. We're going to win this." And we went 13-7 up with about 20 minutes. And Giz, our fullback, ran back, and I said, "We're going to smash these today." And Lawrence came into the change room at half time and made a speech. And I shed you not, like, there were grown men in tears. And it was like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now. And, but like, I think the fact for him was, it was when he needed to step up to the plate, he stepped up to the plate. And he never asked you to do anything less than he would do, basically. That comes across as well. We played in the quarterfinal of the European Cup when we first won it, and no one expected us to win. No one expected us to win, and we're playing Perpignan away in France, and not only Lawrence, but like there are other senior players, and everyone stepped up. And you're playing in front of quite a hostile environment. No, it's not like going to war or anything. Like, after the game, there were 14 sightings up from them, and sightings are, punching in the face, stamping on the heads, everything. And those players you looked up to, and you went. And I, as a young person at the time, well, I was 22, 23. You're just going, well, if they can do it, I can do it.
Sounds like it must have been quite you feel like you're almost fight or flight, or the adrenaline's going.
Yeah.
How did the Wasps team environment support and improve decision-making skills across the team?
Well, it was very much a case of know your roles. Know your roles. If you didn't know your roles, that's what, I mean, split decision making happens anyway. Like, you almost can't train for it, but it was very much a case of know your roles. If you didn't know your roles, and I go back to the thing of going, ask a question, because you'd rather know what's happening. Like I said, split decision making is very, very difficult to train, but knowing your roles is easy to train, if that makes any sense. So when we would be running moves, if you didn't know it, like I said, if you didn't know it and you got it wrong, then there would be consequences. And I could give you examples, but like I'm not going to name names, but like someone didn't do it and then someone got punched and they got knocked out. And it was very much like, you know, that this is probably doesn't happen so much now, but it happened. But it's very much a case of just going up to, so we had Alex King, who was our fly half, and you could go to him, what line do you need me to run? So he's like, I want you here, and I want you running this line to get to from X position to Z position. And I'd rather you know it. If you don't know it, then there's going to be trouble. Um, so it's about knowing your roles. It's not about split-second decisions. If you don't know your role, like I said, ask the question and get it right. Don't ask, get it wrong. Then you're gonna be in trouble.
And obviously, I'm guessing communication is probably pretty key in that sense. And like,
Oh, hugely. Communication is massive, absolutely massive. Either be it off the pitch or in a team environment, in an office environment. Communication is the key. You know, we would have team meetings. We'd go through videos, and that's when you'd be asking the question. Then you'd go out on the pitch and execute that question. And if you're still unsure, just ask again. And I've always said there's no harm in asking people, you know, be it in life in general, just asking people, and it's important.
Were there any moments during your time at Wasps that you felt tested you or the team in unexpected ways? Like, and how did you individually and then collectively navigate those challenges?
Yeah, there were hundreds. You know, we played in cup finals, we played in, you know, quarterfinals. It's like it's very, very we had a mantra at Wasps was defense wins championships, and through adversity comes greatness. And when I remember in 2006, we were like not doing great in the league, and we got together and we're like, well, we've got to get to X position in March. We'd always be like that. And we had written all over the wall, through adversity comes greatness. And we just came together and was just like, we've got to get ourselves. And they ended up winning the league, and not 2006, 2007, sorry. And the way we dealt with it was just to come together collectively and work together, and it's about figuring it out together. I think it's not an individual thing. So,
and that's where lucky kind of who the players all are that come together. Like you said, Wasps, it was such a great team and the culture was so strong because of all the individuals in it. And that is luck. Is it luck, or do you think it's the...
No, I think there was quite a bit of empathy towards everyone. Like we all felt the same, and I think importantly, both on off the field and even in an office environment, it's important to share information. Because it's very easy to go, new person comes in, I'm Tim Payne, Izzy's coming in to take my position. And well, I'm not going to say anything to him, because if I share that information with him, he's not going to, you know, he's going to take my position, sort of thing. And so, but in a team environment, you've got to go, right, there's an academy lad coming in. He's potentially going to take my position. Do I ignore him and go, right, I'm not going to tell you anything, so that when you play, you're going to mess up? But you go, actually, well, we want the team to win. So I go, right, Ali in the academy, if you come into my position, you have to take my position tomorrow when we're playing against Leicester or Gloucester or Bath, Toulouse. I need you to know exactly what I've been doing, so that if you do, for the team to win. Does that make sense?
It's like that
So
one person's so key for the chain of events, for the success of the team.
exactly. Sorry, yeah. So you've nailed it down there. Like, I can't go, well, I'm just going to ignore you, and then potentially the team loses. I have to give you everything I know for you to slot straight into where I'm going to be, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, because you've had such a long career in rugby, do you miss the competition or that kind of thrill? I'm sure you.
Oh, massively. I can't even tell you how much. Like, um, even when I moved into coaching, but as a player, it's I can't really even put it into words, if I'm totally honest. I'm very lucky. I played in, luck. It was not just luck, it was hard work, don't get me wrong. I played in an extremely successful side, probably, up with Sarries Leicester, one of the most successful side in England. And I'm actually going on a reunion on Thursday with that side, which I don't think will be a happy ending, if I'm honest. But like, I miss it massively. Like, it's a massive buzz. I wouldn't even be able to put into words to describe what it was like. And but we, as a result of it, because we were so successful, that group of players, we've become so tight. And even to this day, I reckon I would say I speak to most of them, even in New Zealand, Australia. I speak to them, at least one or two of them, once a week. And I'm going through something at the moment, and two of them have moved on to other careers. They're helping me out with it and things like that. So
Yeah, it's a great support network.
it is a massive support network. And I think it's important to tap into that network. It's not, I don't, sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know.
I think when you think about having that kind of competition though for such a long period of time, it must feel like a massive void, if that's the right word.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, if you came to my house, you would actually not know that I actually played rugby, because I've got nothing really on the wall. I've got my Lions shirt up, and that's it. Like, but bar that, like, it is a void. But like I said, because especially these days, you got them, it's like I can ring one of them up. And I've spoken to Izzy before. I go for walks. That's, I like going for, that's what calms me out. And I just ring all my mates up. Or if I've got to make a business call or anything like that, I'd make it then. But like, I ring my mates up when I'm on those calls. Um, and we chat for, for ages. So I know they're always there.
Like such a strong team culture with Wasps, taking that on board when you're looking for your next opportunity in terms of finding what will excite you. Is there, trying to find something with a great culture or great people?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've been involved with professional sport for 24. When I finished playing, I went and coached at London Irish, then London Scottish. Then I moved up to Newcastle. Um, and then I ended up finished there. And I was beginning to get a bit like, I want to try something different now, get a bit more, because with professional sport, especially in rugby, football, you're away from home a lot. Every other weekend you're away. I've got a young family, and Christmas. I've said it to Izzy. I said, like, Christmas, you're training Christmas Eve, game Boxing Day. You don't have bank holidays or anything like that. And I go, look, well, am I scared? I'll be totally honest. Yeah, I am. Because I've never known another way of life. I've worked, before I played rugby, I worked on farms, I worked on building sites, but I was doing that in school, university school holidays. Okay, with that, all I've ever known really is a gym or a rugby pitch. But what it teaches you is like I've been very fortunate to get to the level I have. So, I've been all over the world. I've done corporate events everywhere. I've gone from Feltham Young Offenders Prison to Buckingham Palace, and it teaches you life lessons and how to communicate. But am I scared about what the next career involves? Yeah, I definitely am. But what rugby has taught me is you've just got to get on with it. And it's
Yeah.
simple as that. It's not being, we all face sorts of challenges. One thing that will never resolve any of these negative thinking is just crack on and get on with it. And I'll give you an example. When I played, I used to sit in the changing room at Wasps, and before a game, I'd never go out until 2 minutes before the warm up. And you sat in the change room, come out, I'd turn left into the physio room, and I'd touch the wall, and I'd go back. And this sports people are weird people, by the way. They have weird habits. I would always put my socks on the same way. Izzy probably does something I don't know, but I always put my left sock on first, and I'd always eat lasagna the night before a game. That I couldn't, and then I'd eat loads of lasagna because the day of the game I'd hardly eat.
Mm.
I'd be like, I'll just have a couple of shakes, few bananas, and that's it. I wouldn't really eat that much, but I'd eat a lot the day before a game. I'd always go to the same restaurant, always have the same food. So
Yeah.
we used to go to Annie's in Chiswick, and I'd always have eggs Benedict with 2 extra sausages. Then I'd go home and make my lasagna. I had lasagna every meal for about every Friday or Saturday night for about 16 years.
You not
And
get sick of it?
no, and then when I finished playing, I remember about 2 years later, I was at home with my wife and I cooked a lasagna. I was like, oh my God, this is the first time I've had lasagna in 2 years. But like I said, I used to come out of the changing room and I'd turn left, I'd go into the physio room and I'd touch the wall. I'd touch the wall and walk back to my seat. And every time I touched the wall, I'd go, when it hits the fan, when you hit the wall, just keep going, keep going. And then I'd walk back to my seat. And then I'd do that about 10, 15 times.
The superstitions, isn't it? It's
Exactly. To a normal person, this is like
crazy.
strange behavior.
So
But
it sounds like, I don't know why you almost think, not that it shouldn't be the case, but it sounds like from how long your career was, you still get nervous right till the end, but because of how much it matters to you, but you almost think you've done it that many times, you wouldn't feel as nervous towards the end. But that's
I know. Even right into the end, I'd be, without sounding grim, I'd be being sick before every game.
really
Yeah,
why you
because
need the carb load with the lasagna then, isn't it?
Of
yeah,
course.
I'd build myself up, and um, I built myself up to such a level that, and I remember being with sports psychologists. I remember my first England game was against Australia in Brisbane, and the sports psychologist was like, "Do you want to go through the game?" I was like, "No, I don't need to go through the game. I don't need." And everyone's different. This is what even in business, in life, I've found, especially when I went into coaching, you've got to have empathy. You've got to be self-aware and aware of other people's feelings. Emotional awareness is the word, isn't it? And I was very much like, I don't need this. And I said to them, I remember saying to the sports psychologist, I said, I don't need this. I go, I know that when I cross that whitewash, I'll be in the game. I go, for me, it was the same game that I played with my mates at Payneswick Rugby Club, which is a little village rugby club near Stroud. And that's all it is. I'm playing with my mates. I go, but however, I do understand that some people are completely different. And that's where the empathy is, to understand people's trends, basically.
Athletes often speak about the importance of discipline, both like on and off the field. Can you share an example of how discipline shaped your career at Wasps? And how do you think that discipline can then translate into future roles as well?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Discipline is massive, but you've got to also be able to let your hair down. Don't get me wrong. But, discipline is, you've got to be able to put the hard yards in. And I've spoken about this, Izzy. Like we had a team member that one time didn't turn up for a training session. Again, I won't mention any names, but like he didn't turn up, and we were like, "Well, you can't play him. You can't play him because he's not been bothered to put the graft in." And but discipline also comes off the pitch. Where I could probably define it for myself is when I did my ACL, which is my cruciate ligament, and everyone said to me, "You're not going to be back. You're going to be out for 9 months. You're going to be out for 9 months." And I was like, "Nah." And I did it in March. It was against Leinster in the quarterfinal of the European Cup, and I was like, "Nah, I'll be back before the beginning of the season." And they were like, "No chance. You're going to be back in November." And it put me out of the World Cup. And I was like, no, I'll be back by the beginning of the season. Just trust me. And I went and had my operation. I ended up getting a pulmonary embolism. Actually, I was in bed for 3 weeks in the hospital, which is a lung blood clot. But I was so disciplined. I was literally, I had a timer on my phone. Every 4 hours, I would get up, ice my knee. Even in the middle of the night, when I'd ice my knee, I'd have a protein shake, and I was literally religious on all my. I was doing swimming sessions at 1 o'clock in the morning with a physio. I was doing physio in the morning at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I was doing physio at 11 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then sometimes I'd be in the pool, like I said, at 12 midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning with my physio. And I ended up in August coming back and playing. And I remember being in a training camp in Granada in the mountains. And I remember saying to Prav, our physio, is now the head of medical services for Wales Rugby. I was like, "Mate, I'm going to do it." And he was like, no chance, no chance. And I was like, "Well, we got to Granada," and he was like, "I think you might be right." We were just doing one-on-one physio, and he was like, "I think you might be right." And I was like, "Well, what do you think?" And don't get me wrong, when you do physio, as Izzy will tell you, when there's injuries, you sometimes take 3 steps forward, 1 step back. It's back and forward. And he was like, "Well, do you want to just go out on the pitch and give it a go?" I was like, "Well, yeah, why not? See how it goes." I went out, did the session, absolutely fine. Next day, my knee was like a balloon, but I didn't train for another day. And then it was just constantly just pushing back in. And I ended up coming back in for the first pre-season game in 4.5 months. And I remember saying to one of the boys at Newcastle, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to be out for 9 months at the ACL." I said, "No, you won't." I go, "If you push yourself, you can be back in 4.5." And he was like, "Well, no, they've told me not." I said, "Mate, I did it in 4.5." And he was went down, and he actually saw the same surgeon that I went to. This guy called Andy Williams, absolute legend. And Andy Williams was like, he went, "Oh, I heard Payne did it in 4.5. He went, this was 10 years after. And he was like, oh, and he goes, I'll just bring up his notes. And he went, yeah, he did. And it's the reason why I'm saying that is the discipline to push yourself is definitely an important thing.
Yeah, I think it's also when you have the team around you, like the physios, you know, you have to be meticulous. But I mean, all of those things that you have to, that the dedication, the hard work, all of that is just basically exactly the same as all the things you need when you're in the business world. I mean, sport and business basically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, I appreciate that I had the best physios, the best surgeon, and things like that. But what it is exactly what you said is you know, just the discipline to get things done.
So for our final question today, what advice would you give to individuals facing major career transitions, whether from sports or other fields? And then how would you think they can leverage their past experiences and the culture they've been part of to then thrive in their new ventures?
Well, I think it's a very difficult question, if I'm being honest with you, because for me, it's very new venture. I think you've got to have a bit of. I'll be totally honest. I'm scared about what the next corner is going to take for me. And I think, as I said earlier, you know, we all face challenges, um, and don't be afraid to tap into people around you that you know. Um, you know, you don't want to go. Sometimes it's difficult to ask people for help, but you know, speak to those resources, speak to those people that you know. You know, for me, it's not about just going and getting a job. I want to build a career. Um, is it scary? Yeah, it is. If I'm like again being totally honest, but as you know, I had an amazing coach in Sean Edwards, and he's always said to me, "Through adversity comes greatness," and I totally believe in that. If I'm honest, excuse me. Um, I'm lucky that I've got an amazing partner, my partner's wife Susan, who I speak to, and if I ever have any problems, I just speak to her. You know, but don't be afraid to give anything a go. We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Don't get me wrong, and there's no problem in that. But don't be afraid to push yourself and take yourself to, you know, places you don't want to go, maybe, but you've just got to go on with it. And I, you know, I'm very much like that. I've always been like that as a character. You know, it's a difficult one because I'm going through that transition now, and you know, I could end up being a bin man next week. It's, but if that's
You have a positive outlook though. I mean, you just end up trying things and you fall into the right place. That's often what I've told myself, rightly or wrongly. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. You know, find what you want to do, but don't be afraid to try anything. Is my thing as well. But don't be afraid to ask for help. And the thing I've learned massively over the last few years is I wasn't very open with my friends. If I'm totally honest, we were very much like. But now, I'm not getting emotional by the way. I like now. I find me and my friends are far more open with each other and tell each other far more than we used to, and that's the way probably society's gone. Um, and don't be afraid to reach out to people. And it is scary if you're changing complete lifestyle and complete jobs. I mean, in sport, it's, you know, you've got to be quite dedicated, but that can bring you into the office environment as well, or work environment, whatever work you go and do. Um, but it's never to always ask for help is what I'd say, and don't be afraid to ask people for help. It goes back to what I said on the training pitch. Always ask a question, even if it's a stupid question. You look like an idiot for 2 seconds. Don't ask a question. You get it wrong, you look like an idiot forever. So
Absolutely. Well, I think that was all of our questions. So thank you so much, Tim. We really appreciate you joining us today. It's been great to
no
hear your
worries.
story.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Thank you very much.
No, that's great.
I'm sure Izzy and I can definitely agree when I say that it's clear how important team culture is in sport. So why should the business world be any different? And of course, thank you to our online listeners again. We'll see you for the next one.